recently developments happening in India related to environment protection, wildlife conservation and biodiversity conservation. But in Environment Performance Index 2026, India once again fared poorly. India's rank was 176 out of 177. In last 4 years, India has been consistently ranked among last 5 countries in that particular rank. Does that mean that there is no environment protection related activities and policies taking place on the ground? This particular index has been also criticized by Government of India. On what basis we are criticizing that? We can expect question in our mains examination and in prelims examination related to which particular organization gives this index and what has been India's performance in different, let's say, indicators. Let's talk about in detail about this topic, very important for our examination, especially related to, we can talk about is GS3 paper environment section is there, for prelims environment part is there, within that climate change, sustainable development, environmental governance. Now I will give you brief idea about what has been, let's say, this particular rank, India's ranking and in that index. Yes, Yale University released recently Environment Performance Index 2026. India ranked 176th out of 177 countries, and it has triggered the debate once again on methodology and India's environmental performance. So every year when India's rank has been, let's say, fared poor in this index, Indian government has been criticizing. Let's talk in detail because we are expecting question this year, especially in mains examination also. Okay, so let's talk about first which particular organization gives this particular index, developed by Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy, Yale University, and Center for International Earth Science in Information Network, Columbia University. These two organizations together release this index every year on the basis of certain criteria. We will talk about those criteria and which, let's say, which kind of indicators are considered. Measures how effectively countries protect their human health, ecosystems and climate we can talk about. Now this year in 2026, 177 countries were ranked based on 47 indicators and 12 issue categories and 3 broad policy objectives were considered. So which are these 3 broad policy objectives? We will talk about that also. It is environmental health, ecosystem vitality and climate change. How much weightage is given and all these things. Here we will talk about methodology because we can expect question on methodology also in mains examination also. 3 broad, we can say that objectives are there. First, environmental health. Second, ecosystem vitality, climate change. This one is given most weightage in terms of, we can say, 45%. Then climate change is given weightage of, we can say, 30% and environmental health remaining 25%. This is the way we should understand, and all this is, we can say, that normalized, weighted and aggregated into a composite score of 100. So out of 100 the score is given to different countries. Now within these components, what indicators are considered? Broadly, roughly we can say that like environmental health, air quality, drinking water quality, sanitation, heavy metals, waste, and in ecosystem vitality, biodiversity and habitat conservation, forest conservation, fisheries status, agriculture, water resource status. In climate change, let's say amount of greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy production, energy efficiency, net zero pathways. So we can see here that the broader aspect of environment, like that we can talk about here environmental vitality, in terms of how much, let's say, health of ecosystem is conserved, protected in the country. Then in terms of climate change mitigation actions, so there we can say focus is there. And third is related to, we can talk about is environmental health. Okay, so environmental health is related to what is the status of pollution related aspect, right? Air quality is there, drinking water, sanitation, heavy metal pollution, waste management. So this is the way we should understand. We can draw the such, let's say, diagram in your answer also. Now let's talk about India's performance in this particular. Now globally, first we can talk about is Estonia has been ranked 1 and last rank is, we can say that, Laos in Southeast Asia, that country, Laos PDR. Now India has been ranked 176 out of 177. You should know the past also. In 2016, India was having, let's say, better ranking. In 2022, India was having last ranking in terms of environment performance index. So it has been hovering in last 5 from there onwards. The score is this year 22.46 out of 100. So we can say that we are in the poor category. Within, we can say that different indicators, major weak areas, air quality, especially PM 2.5 exposure. Now we know that one of the most polluted, we can say that cities, if we talk about polluted cities, they lie in India. Okay, if we talk about, let's say, pollution related WHO standards and those, let's say, polluted cities at world level, they are given, like Delhi is there, Kolkata is there, and one of the city in Assam has been ranked as world's pollutest, let's say, city. Then greenhouse gas emissions, especially greenhouse gas emissions, vehicular emissions are there, or we can talk about is thermal power plants. They are, we can say that, coal fired thermal power plants. So they are the major source of greenhouse gas emission. Along with that, agriculture is there, especially for methane. Okay, this is for, we can say, fossil fuel burning and CO2 emissions. Then ecosystem protection. So in terms of ecosystem protection, we can talk about the problems related to forest degradation, right? Or we can say that forest loss is there. In terms of habitat loss, habitat destruction is there. Forest land is diverted for developmental purpose, infrastructure projects. So ecosystem protection is getting affected. Climate change mitigation, in terms of that also we can say that overall we lack in terms of funds and technology. We are demanding that from developed countries. So yes, we have some imperatives related to the developmental needs of huge population that we are having in the country, and that's why the government is having, let's say, a kind of dilemma also, whether to focus on environment protection, biodiversity conservation, or focus on economic growth and development that will ensure basic needs of the people, right? We are the largest populous country in the world, and therefore balancing these two, we can say that, competing interest is becoming major challenge. This is what even we can say that this report highlights. In terms of better performance and improved performance over the period of time, access to, we can say that, drinking water has improved. Especially you can mention here Jal Jeevan Mission. Jal Jeevan Mission seeks to provide tap water supply, right? Tap water drinking supply to each and every household. So it has improved. Then sanitation services, especially Swachh Bharat Mission, both we can say that urban and rural, right? So it has improved a lot in terms of, we can say, sanitation services, like toilet construction has improved, we can say that, access to toilet. So sanitation services has improved. Then renewable energy indicators. So yes, about now more than 50%, okay, more than 50% of, we can say that, installed capacity, it is now from renewable energy, right, of energy production. So it is from renewable energy, 51% it has reached. So you can add such data in your answer. So this is, we can say that, improvement. Now we'll talk about that why India has been, let's say, ranked poorly. Analytical aspect also should be there. So first of all, the environmental aspect. There is high PM 2.5 concentration, especially from the vehicles, right? Vehicular emissions, and we can say that power plants, coal burning, right? Then coal dependence for energy. This is what we are saying. Urban air pollution, especially from vehicles, and construction. We can talk about construction activities, right? Then biodiversity loss and habitat degradation, especially we can talk about is infrastructure projects, mining, and we can talk about is hydro projects. You can give recent example of, we can talk about is Ken Betwa project is there. Ken Betwa project, river linking. This is the way recent example you give, okay? Then thereafter water and river pollution is there, right? So that is common all over the India, be it Ganga river, Yamuna river, or peninsular rivers. So they are highly polluted, and urban sewage, we can talk about is urban sewage, industrial effluents, industrial effluents, and agricultural runoff. These three are very important. Okay, they are creating problem for our water bodies and polluting them, eutrophication and all these things. Then we can talk about this developmental aspect. Yes, we have huge population pressure, rapid urbanization is going on, industrial expansion, rising energy demand, infrastructure, resource stress. So basically the population and its developmental demands are creating huge pressure on environment, and that's why it is resulting into forest land getting diverted. Agriculture, we are, let's say, focusing on food security, and therefore we are focusing on using the chemical fertilizers and pesticides, that is resulting into agricultural runoff and pollution of water bodies. So this is the way it is impacting this environmental aspect. Third is governmental challenges, governance challenges, weak enforcement of environmental laws, especially we can relate it, we can talk about is pollution norms, like the weak implementation of all these norms, rules by SPCBs and CPCBs, right? So they are statutory bodies, but still they are not implementing them, all these norms effectively. Inadequate waste management, especially in urban areas, urban solid waste management. Especially within that we can talk about is plastic pollution, right? Plastic pollution. Then river pollution and groundwater stress, excess extraction of groundwater is happening, and because of that heavy metal pollution is happening there. Heavy metal, right? Like for example arsenic, arsenic is there, or we can talk about, let's say, cadmium, especially Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, Bihar, West Bengal, and some parts of Rajasthan. Land degradation and poor restoration, data gaps, monitoring challenges. So yes, data gaps also affects the evidence based policy making, and we are lacking, let's say, appropriate data and monitoring related to, we can say, environment, pollution, biodiversity degradation and all these things. Now we will talk about why has India criticized this particular index. First, let's understand, let's say, methodological concerns. First, indicators not suitable for developing countries. So whatever the indicators are used, they are uniformly applied to both developed and developing countries. So there should be some kind of difference. So they are not applied or suitable for developing countries, and they have, let's say, different requirements. Their requirements, there should be, let's say, some kind of equity in terms of application. Then over reliance on model based estimates instead of actual national data. So national data less focused, and in terms of estimation, the models that are used, they are, let's say, kind of simulation is done and extrapolation is done. So model based estimates are focused. Equal comparison of developed and developing countries, economies. This is what earlier I told you. Historical emissions not adequately concerned. So historical emissions are by developed countries mostly. Developed countries are having more responsibility. This is the way CBDR principle works, common but differentiated responsibilities, and equity principle. So that is given less weightage here. So India's stand is that focus should be on equity, CBDR principle, developmental needs of all these developing countries like India, China, South Africa, Brazil, per capita emissions. Yes, per capita emissions of India are very, very less, as we have huge population. Comparatively that, if we talk about equity, per capita emissions, it is very less. So these are our, we can say, arguments. Other points in terms of limitations or criticism of this particular index, especially developmental stage is ignored, does not adequately consider level of development and structural constraints that we are facing as a developing country. Data and estimation concerns heavy dependence on models. Indicator weightage and selection of indicators can influence overall ranking. We have talked about three important, let's say, broad based indicators. So the weightage within that also different indicators are there, that is different, and it may favor developed countries. Local priorities overlooked, may ignore the local environmental priorities, cultural context and national efforts. So whatever the efforts we are taking, we are already, let's say, looking at several aspects of environment protection. There is, let's say, separate discussion on that. We will talk about that. Oversimplification. Composite ranking oversimplifies complex environmental realities on the ground. So that is also we can talk about. Basically, environmental diversity that we have in terms of habitat diversity, climate diversity and biodiversity. So basically that aspect should be also considered. The other countries, European countries especially, they have uniformity of habitat and we can say that climate and everything. So it is easy for them to implement certain policies by the government also. So these kind of complexities are not considered. Now if we talk about in the end India's environmental activities and performance in last few years, it has taken so many steps, especially climate action. We have declared our INDCs, right? NDCs are nationally determined contributions to Paris Agreement, right? Then one of them is net zero by 2070, we can say that, and Panchamrit goals. So overall climate mitigation aspect, and especially within this several steps are being taken, like national action plan for climate change we have, and under this there are 8 missions, like national solar mission is there, national mission on sustainable habitat, and we can say sustainable agriculture, Himalayan habitat. All these missions are there. They are focusing on climate change mitigation and adaptation. Clean energy transition, rapid expansion of renewable energy, about now 50% of installed capacity. National green hydrogen mission pushing energy efficiency, especially we can say that Bureau of Energy Efficiency, they are working on star labeling systems and all these things for all equipments. Okay? Star labeling. So you can see that AC, refrigerator and all these electronic and electrical equipments, they will have the star labeling, Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Then conservation and biodiversity, Project Tiger, Project Elephant is there. Then we can talk about Project Cheetah. So many, let's say, projects are there. Mangrove initiative for coastal habitats. We have Mishti scheme now, right? Mishti scheme seeks to protect and conserve mangroves. Life mission, lifestyle for environment, that is the call given by our Prime Minister at international stage also. Then pollution control, the apex, let's say, policy that we have program, National Clean Air Program. This has been asked twice in mains examination. Remember this. Okay, 2019, 2020 mains examination. And this focuses on what? PM 10, PM particulate matter 10, PM 2.5. Its reduction, especially non-attainment cities, according to National Ambient Air Quality Standards, NAAQS. Then we have Bharat's stage, BS stage 6 emission norms. Now they are compulsory for all vehicles in India, okay, all over India. Then we have, we can say, PUC, pollution under control norms, Swachh Bharat mission, urban and rural, and several initiatives undertaken from that. Then sustainable development initiatives like National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, I told you, and one of the mission of NAPCC. Then National Namami Gange program is there for, let's say, Ganga river and preventing Ganga river pollution and restoration. National afforestation program that we have, right? So CAMPA is there, compensatory afforestation and management, we can say that all these provisions are there. So we have Biodiversity Act and Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Environment Protection Act 1986. So all these legislative frameworks, policy and programs, they are trying to focus on environment protection, then we can say biodiversity conservation, wildlife protection. So in this manner, we should talk that these achievements show India's commitment towards greener and sustainable future. So if such question is asked, in the end you take a stand that yes, the steps are being taken. At the same time, we should be focusing more and more in terms of strict and stringent environmental, we can say that, regulation, implementation of regulations like EIA, stricter EIA, environment impact assessment, it should not be bypassed, right? So this should be focused. Then we can talk about is wildlife corridors and protection of those corridors. So simply declaring tiger reserves is not going to help. So there should be protection to the tiger corridors, elephant corridors. So this is the way we should focus. Then we can talk about the emerging issues related to invasive species. So focus should be on that, right? Emerging issues and challenges, that invasive species. So it is creating problem to biodiversity. Also we can say that the overall groundwater depletion, because many of these species are water thirsty, like eucalyptus. So try to give such kind of, let's say, futuristic aspect everything is not good in our environmental policy, that is for sure, right? PUC norms are flouted, and we can talk about the vehicular emission, public transport system, it is not efficient. So focus should be on making it efficient, and we can say that cleaner fuels should be used. Like the recently we can talk about is like battery cells or hydrogen cell based, we are, let's say, focusing on mobility, like we can say that railways, and then high speed rail corridors that we are focusing. So this is the way public transport system should be made efficient. All right, so continue following all these sessions on daily basis. We are providing current developments which are very relevant to our prelims and mains examination. You can subscribe to Legacy IAS channel, and you can share with your friends also. Thank you.